tweet it.
All right. Well, I guess, are we good to go? Are we good to go?
You're on.
Sweet, thank you. All right, so I guess we'll call the meeting to order at 6:01. And it looks like we have everybody here, minus Linda. And we also have Casey here. Casey, thanks for joining us today. So did anyone have any comments on the minutes from January 27th meeting?
No, except you said that today's meeting would be 5:30.
Yes.
You know what time I came?
5:30?
I just tried to obey the rules.
Well, in my email, I did say 6 because I noticed on the CPRD
On
thing
CPRD
it was at 5.
website,
Yeah.
it was 6.
Yeah. So we will get
so
that.
that's what I went by.
Yeah, we will get that squared away. But I would assume it's going to be at 6 moving forward. All right. Well, motion to approve. Hey, Linda. Welcome. No worries. No worries. I guess before we motion, did you have any comments on last meeting's minutes? All right. Sweet. Thank you. Motion to approve the January 27th minutes.
Yes.
Sweet. All right.
Cheryl, can I borrow
All right. Do we have any comments from the public? Brandon, you're our public member.
I'm just here to listen and learn.
Sweet.
Plays pickleball. I go to the gym at a specific time, so I might jump in there and
It's a good cool down after your workout. Yeah.
I usually drop off my kids.
The session is from 7.
Around 8, 9 on Wednesday.
Well, so I guess we'll jump right in. During our last meeting, we talked about the update on the project and how the plans were submitted to the city, and we requested that we could kind of hear about and see what those plans look like. So, Casey, thank you for being here, and it looks like we have John via Zoom if you guys want to kind of take over a little bit on that.
Yeah, this is our project architect, John Champlin. He's been working on the project since early last summer, or late last summer, I guess. And we submitted the plans, and I think he had to make some adjustments to it a couple weeks ago, so we're still waiting for the results on what we're gonna have to do as far as land use, and we'll take public comments for a while, and we'll see what they come up with that we have to provide on top of what we designed. So,
How long does the city usually take on something like that?
well, they say 2 weeks, but it's longer.
Yeah,
City staff's a little bit short, and I think there's a lot of things in the works. So
Yeah. Yeah.
But he's online.
Yeah.
anyway, I'll let John take over from here if you want. Share your screen
Yeah.
or whatever, John.
absolutely. Thank you, Casey. Let's see. I think you will have to enable me to share it. It says host has disabled participant screen sharing.
Well,
Do you have control over that?
Richard's gonna fix that for you.
All right. Yeah, just to, I guess, follow up on what Casey was saying there. Casey, I don't know if you saw the email I forwarded. The city got the land use application deemed complete today, so that's
John,
good
you want her
news. They still have a review period. 15 days is what they have to review the application, and then it goes to public comment. So, hopefully there's no opposition, community opposition from neighbors or anyone else. That would help streamline the project. But if there is opposition, it's not necessarily a project killer. It's just something we have to deal with. Okay, here we go. So, can you all see the aerial image here of Jaquith?
Yes.
All right. So I won't get into the, details of the existing park too much. I'm confident that you all are very intimately familiar with this park. The existing tennis courts and where the pickleball courts are overlaid are down in the southern part of the park. The primary access, of course, is off North College Street. There is a open lawn area just to the east of the existing tennis courts. It's very well positioned. It's relatively flat. It's open. It will not require much clearing. So it's an area that's very conducive to building some new courts. In relation to the existing tennis courts, they're past their usable life. The asphalt is giving way. There's a lot of cracking going on. So as part of our project, we are going to pull up that asphalt and relay down new, fresh asphalt, to current standards to American Sports Builders Association detail. That's what we're following for the paving for all of the new surfacing. So with that, I'll jump to our site plan. So as I mentioned, the new courts will be located just to the east of the existing tennis courts. There will be included 6 standalone permanent pickleball courts. Each one will be 34 feet by 64 feet. So that's a standard court plus a 10-foot overrun in the back and a 7-foot overrun on each side will be the spacing. The perimeter of these new courts will have a chain link fence that will match the existing chain link fence on the tennis courts. It'll be a 10-foot tall chain link. There will be a 4-foot wide gate access onto each individual court from the north. That's, the primary access is coming from the parking lot. So lining up the walkway, there will be a paved spectator area on the north side of courts 1 through 4. And that will include 3 benches, a trash receptacle, a drinking fountain with bottle filler off to the side. And then, as I mentioned, the individual gates onto each court. So there will also, in addition, be 2 access gates onto courts 3 and 4 from the south, which will line up. There's an existing walkway that leads to the church property to the south. So that access will line up there if and when there's potential access coming from that area. The courts will actually be separated by a 4-foot tall chain link fence right down the middle. We are proposing to, I'll zoom in here. We're proposing to include a 4-foot wide opening at mid-court. This would not be gated. This would just be a permanent opening for people to get in between the courts. We located the openings there just for ease of access between courts, and with the thought that the majority of any stray balls would be caught by the courts in the backs of the zones. Part of the project, we do have to detain and treat stormwater on site for any new impervious area. So this hatching and these circles here represent trees and stormwater plants for a stormwater detention pond that will overflow and tie into the existing storm system that's out there. So it's not going to hold water except really for, rain events. The majority of the time that, people are using the courts, this will look just like a vegetated, depressed area here. We are including 3 bike racks adjacent to the existing asphalt path. So that would provide bike parking for up to 6 bikes there, 1 on either side of each bike rack. I didn't lose you guys, did I? I heard somebody drop off.
Nope.
Okay, great. Let's transition over to the tennis courts. So currently there are 4 tennis courts out there today, and we're proposing 4 tennis courts to be installed with the new surfacing. These would have permanent nets. Just like I failed to mention, the courts here would have permanent nets as well, these 6 pickleball courts. Overlaid on top of the 2 easterly tennis courts would be 6 additional temporary pickleball courts. Of course, these will not have permanent netting, but they will have tick marks. I'll zoom in on one. They will have tick marks for the temporary nets to be installed for larger tournaments, those sorts of things. This would be overflow space. We did organize these so that access from the gate on the northeast, there's a bit of a landing zone here. So if there was a game going on, there's a bit of a area, a space there to allow people to come into the court, get into the fence, and get over to where they will be playing. That pretty well does it for the layout. I do want to quickly speak to the court surfacing. The colors that you're seeing, this is we don't have true color represented on this, just because these are developed for contractors to bid on, and they like their bid documents to be in black and white. But we do have the colors specified as this light shade in the middle would be blue. The medium gray shade surrounding that would be the green. And then the darker asphalt would just be an unsurfaced asphalt with no acrylic surfacing. And with that, I want to jump over to the proposed surface. So what we are proposing is a system called PlexiPave. It's a hard court surface, and it's a very durable acrylic surfacing. It's very well known. Lots of major courts utilize this surface. It goes right on top of the asphalt. It's got a sanded silica in it, and it goes down in multiple layers. This system would actually go down in 4 different layers. Very durable, very, very good for play. So I think that pretty well does it on the design and the improvements. I guess with that, I would open it up for questions.
Oh, sorry. I was just wondering if you're going to be putting any fence between the tennis courts and the temporary pickleball courts.
We don't have any fencing now, primarily because of the layouts. So the if you can see, you know, the divider between the tennis and where the division would be for the pickleball, it's not ideal. Really, if we wanted to do that, we could do that, but it would require some different spacing, and we would probably only be able to include a single pickleball court on each side of the tennis court. I do think we could make that work, but I'd have to double check the you know, the clear zone for safety between tennis. I'm not 100% sure that we've got enough space to include fencing, but we could look into that if that was a need.
Put fencing in, then you've got.
No, I know,
Closer.
but having, you know, previous played tennis on those courts, it's really irritating when you have to go all the way from one end to the other end because nothing stops the ball in between playing tennis. I know we're here for pickleball. I'm just, pretty
yeah,
sure
no, we
some
should-
people with tennis will probably have some comments to make about this.
They don't have them
They go
now,
all the way over to the, if
Yeah.
nobody's
Yeah.
playing tennis,
This
they
is
go.
all the way over,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
There's no fencing now.
Yeah, no, I know.
Hey,
Jo-
John, is there, so there's only an 8-foot apron on the pickleball section where people can hang out. What is the
patio area.
material on, is that grass around that?
This is,
That's, that's the asphalt, right? But
yeah,
what's that?
that's all grass. And really the only reason we're planting grass is because this is the impact area. So we're replanting everything that we're impacting. We need to reseed that. So this stippling is all grass, yes.
Okay. And then one other comment, I am not at all excited about having that 4-foot gap in the pony walls. I think that defeats, it's a safety thing for me because
Okay.
balls fly all the time, all over the place. And I would highly, not excited at all about that. And then my last question is, existing fencing, I'm assuming that you're going to put in like a green or a black fence or not anything but silver?
Yeah, these documents propose a black vinyl coated chain link fence. So, one thing to note, in order to repave the tennis, we can leave the posts, but we do have to pull off all the chain link fabric around the existing tennis. And so all of that will now match the pickleball. And that's a black vinyl coated chain link. We could go green if you know, that was the preference. We just typically go with black. I mean, it's basically kind of the standard.
I think black is a good choice. I have a question about the colors. I heard blue where the light gray is and green where the darker gray is. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Is there a contrast in the non-volley zone? Contrast color?
We don't have one right now. That is something we could propose. There's really no added cost there at all.
Okay.
Let me jump. One of these pictures had like this. You could go with something like this with a very contrasted color.
I would highly
or
recommend that.
Even a light blue. I've seen it done with like a dark blue and then a light blue.
That's something that can be decided later, correct?
It is.
Yeah,
it
I
is.
think it'd be a good idea to go look at other courts and just see, but there's gotta be a contrast, if you're doing this much work, gotta be a contrast in the kitchen.
Can I make a comment?
Unless it's public
I don't know if any of you have played at Kaiser Rapids Park, but this is exactly how they have it set up, is what he's talking about. And I recommend as committee members to just try it out there, because they have the gap, the 4-foot gap in between at the net area to go from one court to the other. And there were no balls. I mean, maybe there was like one ball that went through there, but it was a rarity because they do go towards the end of the court more. But I highly encourage to go play at Rapids Park because again, it's almost identical to this layout.
And their color scheme?
Their color scheme was blue for the non-court and yeah, I could show it to you. And then it was green, and then the kitchen was a gray, or maybe it's blue. Isn't it
Yeah,
awful? Like,
we'll do some, this gives us time and we can do some field trips.
yeah, field trip pickleball.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I will say, I personally really like the idea of the 4-foot gap between courts to just make it easier moving between courts. That's the great thing about pickleball is it's usually a lot of big groups playing there, as well as the idea of, where they're located. I don't see a lot of balls going through there. The other thing, well, first off, John, I think that this plan looks awesome. So thank you for all your hard work on it. I mean, really, really exciting to hear you talk about this. One other just minor suggestion or thought, I should say, is there a reason that the fence around the pickleball courts is a 10-foot fence? I know at a lot of facilities it's a more of a 4 to 5 foot, just to make viewing a little bit easier. Just a suggestion from what I've seen at other courts.
Yeah, that's a great point. We really decided to do that just to match what's going on at the tennis courts. Also, just thinking about, court security. These courts are not visible from the public street, and so just thinking about keeping people off the courts at nighttime and when the park district wants to secure them. It would save cost if we went to say a 6-foot fence for certain, and even an 8-foot chain link fence would save on cost. So we don't really, to that point, we're not close to a public street, so there's really not a risk of, balls flying into traffic or anything like that. So we could reduce the fence height for sure, if that was your desire.
Yeah, I would say I think the logic of the safety of the facility might be more important than slightly enhanced viewing. I don't know, just my thought. Yeah. So I get that.
Yeah, we can talk. I'll talk it over with Casey and Clay and see what we think. In terms of keeping balls contained, a 6-foot to even a 4-foot tall fence would do the job. But yeah, we'll talk about that in terms of security and come up with a decision.
I have another question about the viewing area, patio, or whatever it is. Eventually, phase 2 will be a cover for this, and I'm assuming a cover overhanging and to the viewing area or staging area, because that's where people will wait to get on a court. Not having it go all the way to the end, and even maybe if it did, maybe it wouldn't have to be 8 feet, but we would have to walk through the murky grass in the winter.
I had a question for that too.
Yeah. And so, just even just a wide enough for a walkway to get to those courts, I think would be important.
On the other end.
Right, where you have the.
Where you put that red line.
Yeah.
And then there's a pathway there for the other two courts.
To meet the existing asphalt.
Yes, yeah. I think that would be.
Something like that.
Yeah.
I like that there are no benches in the courts. I think that's a hazard. Are there benches in the tennis courts at all?
We did propose to relocate some of the benches back into the tennis courts. mostly where they're at now. With the exception, there is a bench between courts 2 and 3. I can actually show that. This is our existing conditions and demolition plan. There's an existing bench right here. And we're proposing to relocate that to the exterior. So we located these with both obviously tennis and pickleball in mind. So there's one here sort of, at this kind of entry area, one here between tennis and pickleball, one here, and then 2 on the south side.
Okay, good. Are they
So-
permanent benches or are they movable? Because the benches that are there now are moved all the time.
These would be the benches that are there. So, that's a good point. I mean, they could be fixed in place, or we could allow them to just remain movable.
You might have a reason to move them for some.
It's kind of nice
Once you
because
fix them, they're
Yeah,
fixed.
yeah.
Yeah, no, I know.
I think it's
know.
kind of nice that they can be moved. If we've got a tournament, they can be moved out of the way, put to the side. If there's tennis and everybody's doing tennis, it only takes 2 people to move them wherever you want. And
And the one in the middle is gone, so that's not a problem. It's just, they just move them to weird places.
I have a
Those
question.
crazy kids.
I have a
No,
question. I have a question
I
about.
would-
Sorry.
Sorry, I just wanted to close the loop on the benches real quick. I would recommend that these 3 be fixed.
Yep.
Because they can't be secured and they could disappear pretty easily.
Yep,
So I would recommend they be fixed in place.
yeah, I think that's a great
Anything
idea.
outside the fence.
That's a great idea.
I have a couple questions. One about the pickleball courts on the tennis courts. Is it possible to line them up with the tennis lines differently and better?
Yeah, it's not an easy
What-
layout, honestly, to do that. We did our best in terms of lining up, sideline with center line on pickleball on those sides, and then center line with center line for the the singles. It's a balance because we want to have
Yep.
proper overplay zones, on the backs of the courts and between the nets and the backs of the courts, and then between the courts. So, yeah, we could look at this if you had some ideas as to how you wanted to really, potentially lay this out differently. But yeah, that was our best effort in terms of
Yep.
trying to line up the lines.
It's the kitchen line. Sometimes it's really challenging to get up to and determine which line you're moving to. Is it the gray line
Yeah.
or the blue line so that's just a.
But the
just
problem is
a-
if you move it, then
Yep,
you're gonna be
yep.
too close to the net or too
Yep.
close to the
Yeah,
fence.
yeah.
is
I
the-
get it. I just thought I'd
I
ask.
really appreciate that you flipped the
Yep.
alignment so that we can get in the court. We can use that first court right by the gate. Where the one now is, it's usable, but no one can come in or out without disrupting everything. So I appreciate that.
Right. Yeah,
There-
it's kind of right there when you come in. So if somebody's during play,
Right.
it pretty much restricts access.
Yeah. I really appreciate the attention to detail. A lot of my wishes are addressed in the permanent courts. The gates, the gate alignment and, being able to get to the court without interrupting play is great. It'll keep things going quickly.
Kind of a related question, not a lot of background in terms of what went into the initial planning. Do we really need 4 tennis courts? I never see anybody out there playing tennis.
High school.
Yeah, I think they get used
Yeah,
more
okay.
heavily than you
The-
think, yeah.
The high school does use those during 1st of March, mid-May. And they have so many girls right now that are playing tennis at the high school that they use all 4 courts for practice and for games. So,
And my other question is, in terms of spectators, is there enough room for spectators? Because at some point we might want to have tournaments. Should there be more room for spectators? I can't really tell that there.
Like that 8 foot, I'm going to jump on with him. Can we go out any further? Because I know I play a lot in Sun River, and we've got a pretty big alley. Can we push that out another 2 feet? So people can comfortably sit and, you know, we could have more of a social area. Because pickleball is social. I don't know if you guys have ever noticed that. I don't know, John, how close you can get to that drainage area.
This is all proposed, so this is all in
Okay,
play.
well, don't go too much bigger. Casey will not like that, so. The budget probably won't either.
Well, and for
Yeah.
tournaments and things like that, it will be, the grassy area could be used with, chairs and.
But would it be
Yeah.
like, if you're doing this, I mean, if you're gonna be adding that extra path, so you're not walking in the grass to get from court to court, would you want it to go all the way down as well as wide? Just like how we just moved so that you would have that, I don't know how many spectators and whatever are there, but
If it was in, if.
rather than being
what
like
they're
half the
adding.
size, you do the full size that you have where the darker gray is, and take it all the way down to the,
Typically,
To the
a lot of our
end.
spectators, when we have tournaments, are around the outside. Even when where we're
Okay.
at now, the spectators are underneath the trees. They're all in the grassy area, because typically when we're having tournaments, it's dry and it's hot. And all the spectators are in lounge chairs, and they're all sitting outside the grass, watching from outside, watching in.
Okay.
Very, very few people inside the tennis courts of what we have now, and it'd be the same thing where people would be around the outside on the grass. My question is, so we've got the path going to the right. Is there any access to the pickleball and tennis going from that area to the other area
Oh, good
with a
question.
gate? Or in a small pathway, just to be able to get, instead of having to walk, because if we did a tournament or we're doing social play, where right now you have to, if you're on that one first court, you've got to go all the way out through the grass, all the way out around the front and in. Is there a way to put a small pathway and a gate to have access from both areas?
Yes, that's a great point.
Great.
We have a gate right here,
Okay.
at the northwest corner. So really just,
Oh, I
we were
see,
thinking
yeah.
about if there was play, to get between courts, this would be the best location to get over to the tennis courts. I failed to mention the elevation and the grading and the earthwork. We have this, the pickleball court area 6 inches above the tennis courts, and we're changing that grade by adding a 6-inch concrete header curb that would be in alignment with the fence. And so there will be a 6-inch step there, so that won't be wheelchair accessible. With the exception of that step, everything else is wheelchair accessible. You can get throughout this court without any steps and without going over, a steep slope at all. It's relatively flat. But there will be a 6-inch step there.
so why, just as a matter of interest, why are you making the one 6 inches higher?
It's really a matter of being tied into the site. And so, believe it or not, there's almost 5 feet of grade change existing from this corner. If you can see my cursor, or this southeast corner of the pickleball courts, it's almost a 5-foot grade change to the northwest corner of where that gate is. And so, of course, the pickleball courts can't slope 5 feet across. It's a standard 1% grade change. If you look at, I want to show you our grading plan. This might be very technical for some of you, but if you can see the contours, we are removing this existing tree that's here, and our grading, even by raising the court 6 inches, we are cutting very close to the existing asphalt path. And so without adding that curb, we would be forced to add a retaining wall on that side. And it's also a situation of earthwork in terms of hauling off a bunch of dirt, a bunch of material off of the site, just to cut back into that grade so much if they were to be at the same elevation.
Makes sense, thanks.
Along with that, with the water, is the water gonna go from grade from the front to back or from back to the front?
It will all go from south to north. So I'll actually jump back to the grading plan. So these contours, you can see the 185 contour here, water will drain perpendicular to that. So it will run from southeast to northwest in that direction at a 1% grade. When there's no water on it, it's going to feel very, very flat.
The concern I have with that, and I don't know what, I mean, again, I don't know a lot about grading, but if we're trying to get water off the courts, and then the water's all going on to that seating area or the area where everybody's hanging out on the, will that get out of that area or hang out in that area and be a puddle?
It's gonna sheet off. It's not gonna go off in one area. It's gonna
The
more or
1%
less
grade isn't enough to.
equalize out over that whole
Okay.
area.
Thought I'd ask.
Yeah.
And you
Yeah,
can't
so
grade that.
it'll all sheet flow right off. It'll basically be the exact same condition as the court. The spectator area, it'll be one plane and will sheet flow off into the storm pond. The 1% grade is actually the maximum suggested grade by the American Sports Builders Association. The minimum is a 0.83%, so it's a very low tolerance. You know, I mean, we're talking about fractions of an inch across 10 feet, you know, when you get into that difference. But it's, in terms of actually getting asphalt, a paving company to hit 1%, it's pretty difficult, to be honest. But asphalt is it's the most economical approach for these types of courts.
Thanks.
Concrete, of course, you know, it would last longer, but it's much more expensive.
Yeah, Brandon.
Hello, my name's Brandon Slider. I'm just sitting in. I had a quick question, slightly off topic, with the removal of the southeast tree. Are you going to replant one or more trees elsewhere in the park?
All those new ones run
Okay.
We do have 12 proposed for the stormwater
I see. Okay. Those are
facility.
trees.
So
Okay. Perfect.
those are kind of around the perimeter of on the side slopes of, you know, we call it a pond, but you're not gonna have water in it except during, you know, rain events.
Like today.
This is a Casey question. So I'm assuming, or John, I'm assuming that you guys will have lots of conduit in, so when we go into phase 2, we're not rebuilding.
Digging under the foundation of the
Right,
courts?
yes.
No, we're not going to do that.
No, yeah, okay, we've spent a lot of time talking about, you know,
Yeah.
the infrastructure, and so that's pretty well handled to grow this thing. Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Factored in.
We
yes.
have 2 empty sleeves with junction boxes on either side. We've got one kind of going through the middle area into the. They're basically terminating into the grass. Got one there and one over here on the west side. So if and when, you know, the covering goes in and we need to pull power across or whatever we need to get through those sleeves, the utilities can go through there.
Okay.
I have one more question about the seating area. If you go back to the other, there. Is there Could it be extended to the tennis court and the gate be from the seating area?
That's what I was asking.
I think that's what you were trying to ask.
It could absolutely be, yes.
I think that makes more sense than through the pickleball court with a step.
Still might have a step.
You still have a step, but it's in the,
Going from
it's not in the
yeah,
court.
yeah.
Doesn't
with
have to
that-
be 8 foot, just,
It's probably safer.
We'll pretend.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, with the
seem to make
gate,
the most
with the
sense.
gate, kind of where, maybe
Yeah, right there.
move the bench down a little bit, but the gate over there.
Okay.
I have a question about the fencing. We talked about maybe you were talking about the 10-foot fencing around the outside. Does that play into effect phase 2? Would a 10-foot fence be in the way if we put a cover over the top?
How tall do you need?
10 foot would no.
Just
It
a
would,
thought.
Because I think what I was told was you're gonna require it's like a 15 to 22 foot ceiling on it.
Okay, just wanted to ask while we're talking logistics.
Mm-hmm.
For spectators, there's also grassy areas all around that, as well as the pathway that goes from, we're not ripping the pathway out.
Pathway's nice. This last summer when we had a couple tournaments,
Yeah.
a couple different things.
Nice and
It's
shady.
nice to sit on that pathway. I mean, there's still room for people to sit on the pathway and still room for people to walk by.
So really what we're doing there doesn't really change anything in that sense. It just gives you lots more area around it to view inside.
Hey, John, how flat is that grassy area going to the north? What's the grade drop from the end of the sidewalk to the existing asphalt trail on the north side to the courts? Is that going to be pretty flat?
Are you talking about?
Yes, right
this
there.
path? Let's
And
jump over to
also,
grading.
and also just the grassy area. I know that it's going to go down in the pond area, correct?
Yes, it'll go down in the pond area. We do have, I will say, we do have a shallow swale. Now this is not going to be deep. We're talking about, a few inches really, just to shed water from the court and get it down to be collected and flow into the pond. This path, 2.6%, is very, it'll feel very flat there. This slope, I believe we had I want to say, I thought we had a little, here we go. That's basically the condition at that swale. It's a 5-to-1 side slope. You will, feel that, and probably would not be, comfortable to sit in a chair kind of near the flow line of that swale. But along the top edges on both sides and adjacent to the pathway, that's all going to be existing.
We just lost all
So-
power in here except for your voice. Just so you know, we
No.
can't see you.
Stay with us, John. Stay with
Richard's
us.
got power.
Yeah, we're out.
Yeah, we're out.
Can you still hear us though? Generator's kicking in.
I can hear you guys. I was actually worried I was going to be the one to lose
You're
power.
gonna run out in a
tonight,
couple minutes.
I got some questions for you. This is Jim McMaster.
Hey, Jim.
Because I was involved when they moved the playground from where that court is now. That used to be where the playground was, part of that. And then they moved the playground to put the tennis court in. But as I remember that area, it was, it was an old swamp in there. And they had to bring in a lot of gravel and so on to build that up and to do some geotech work on that because it was so bad with that blue clay. And my understanding from Casey is you guys, do you think you need to do any geotech work out there? Because I'm concerned that it may just, sink again. And so that's a concern of mine. Are you still there?
Yep, I can hear you.
So that's
Can you hear
something that, I don't know, you might want to
We can
discuss.
hear you.
You might want to discuss.
Yeah,
Because,
Yeah.
and the other, I don't see the picture right now, but I didn't know if along that fence line, you could put where they talked about, hey, let's asphalt it all the way across. You could use grasscrete around there and do that instead to get a solid surface but not be in grass. Because I can guarantee you that after a rain, if those courts dry out, people are going to be playing and then they're going to be in that grass and it's going to get muddy and they're going to track it in.
Yeah.
And that's what's gonna happen, and so, that's a concern of mine. Even taking it from the front of that court all the way around the side of the tennis courts with grass creep, because they're gonna walk that way no matter what. They're not gonna go out to the path, people, they're gonna walk the quickest way they can get there. So it's just something to consider to keep the courts clean. But I am concerned about that clay and the area you're gonna be working in. It is really bad. And so, just something to think about.
yeah, that's a good point, Jim. I will say we have our in-house geotechnical engineering group on contract for construction inspections. So, because we know this area is pretty soggy, I think the best construction season for this would be late summer. I know
Right.
that's not fun for the group because that's when you want to actually use the courts. But it's just the nature of the area that we live in and the soils that we have and the rainy season here in the winter. The plan is that we have our geotech on board. They will go out when the contractor has excavated the site to subgrade, and they will probe the conditions and make any recommendations to them. One thing we have as an advantage on this project is there's not going to be heavy equipment on these courts after they're done, after construction is done. And so, as long as the subgrade is prepped and we get fabric down below the aggregate base and it's properly compacted, which our geotech group does, they will ensure that proper compaction is done, most likely through a proof roll, fully loaded water truck or dump
Right.
truck. And as long as that proof roll holds, and the paving goes down properly, which will ensure it does, it really has no chance to settle after that, as long as it's all installed properly. So, yeah, it is a known fact, and we've tried to prepare for that as much as we can.
Okay, because the front part where you just talked about putting that little swale in there, that's gonna be damp. That little grass swale you talked about that goes underneath the path over to the
Yeah.
retention area, that's gonna get ugly in the wintertime, and people will play, like I said, anytime they can. So it's just something to consider. If there's something else you could do there to make that a little more substantial, they're gonna track it into the courts. Then we did use Plexipave on those courts before, along with probably 2 other lifts while I was here of different types of covers. So yeah, Plexipave is a pretty good product. We did use that probably 25 years ago, maybe, on that court. And then I know there's concern about trees, but the reality is with those big maples out there, I would hate to have them raising that court. I'd rather plant new trees and take some of those down than have these raise those courts and we have that mess. Because I don't know, you're taking the one maple down, there's another one back behind it. I know some of them have already fallen down. In the past, we had to take them down, so I know you, Casey, Brian, and so on can talk about that.
It's a silver maple, it's not a good tree to have.
Right, and so, but there's another one around there too, isn't there? I'd recommend we look at replanting. And so because 5 years down the road, if it raises that area in the tennis courts, to the backside of the tennis courts by the church there, that's already raised. That's above grade there, above the path. If you notice, the gravel goes up from that path. So those trees aren't going to impact that as much there. But if we're down lower and not above, I'm worried about those trees. So just something to look at from an arborist standpoint and maintenance down the road. And maintaining the beautiful the beautiful courts you guys have designed. And you guys on the committee have asked some great questions. Thank you.
Yeah, those are really good points, Jim. I appreciate that. So, all the trees on that kind of south side, they're all on the other side of the path. So we left those alone. We are encroaching, on a few trees here along the north in terms of, doing earthwork in the root zone, but we're not cutting much, and they are fairly young trees. There's nothing, substantial out there. But it is a good point. I mean, we could talk that over and see if, it might be best to pull those out and replant.
I know those trees aren't as young as you think. They've been there probably over 30 years now, but even longer, I think. But they just haven't grown very fast. But
Gotcha.
I just would hate to, I'd rather replant than have those, and they're, it could be an issue, but I'll let you guys look at that.
Okay.
Shade's great, but
We don't have the root system to
That's why we have
Right.
pop-ups.
But we can do pop-ups. and
Pop-ups.
One thing I wanted to mention very quickly, there's a couple of storage bins out there. It's my understanding those are for the pickleball group.
Yes.
They're on this east side of the tennis court. We showed separating those, putting one here near this entrance and then one here near this entrance. I don't know that, those are movable, but those are just a couple of places. If there's any, requests on, a dedicated place for those that isn't in that kind of entry spectator zone, I'd like to, hear any feedback on that.
The nice reason of having them where they're at now is they basically hold the portable nets. So having them on the tennis courts that will require the portable nets might be good.
But since we only have need for 6 nets, we might be able to reduce it to one box.
Yeah, we probably could. Yeah, yeah. It
And
holds
then,
like an
and then
AED.
maybe a box over there for balls and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we could have one in the, if we could have one in the tennis court to hold 6 nets, and then balls that would be needed, and then one over in the seating area to hold the balls in it.
I mean,
And
yeah.
we have an AED in one of them, I'd like that
Yeah.
accessible.
Okay.
Hey, John.
Yes.
It's Linda Sandberg again. Where the number 18 is, I would, now that I'm looking, if we can extend that pathway to the tennis courts, that would be great. But I'm looking at it and, 8 feet might be enough to get that extension and not go over the stormwater issue areas. I'm looking at budget of running more asphalt.
So if we did something like this,
Yeah.
is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's more practical. What do you guys
And
think?
you're saying take away the one that's over there on the other end, or are you saying that that's
No, we
still
need
gonna-
that too.
No, yeah.
Need that.
You're just talking about an asphalt
all the way down?
pathway all the way across.
Yeah. From the tennis courts to that walkway. Then it
The
would
little
be,
walkway.
the little walkway.
Yeah.
It would be accessible.
Yeah.
Would Grass Creek work there and stay away from any expansion of our stormwater retention with the city?
Grass what?
I, it should,
Oh,
they,
got it.
It's just-
yeah, engineering should look at that as a pervious surface.
Right.
And honestly, adding this much asphalt, we always, oversize these slightly anyway. So adding this much asphalt may not even impact the layout of this. If it does, it's a matter of just tweaking the layout slightly to account for that additional impervious surface. But if it was Grass Creek, that should be looked at and viewed as pervious, because it is.
Yeah.
My other question
As soon
is,
as he said-
this is for the pickleball committee folks, and you alluded to it before. Are you gonna wanna have like a 3-tier stands somewhere around there for tournaments? I don't know, I know sometimes they move them in over by okay, that's what I wanna know. I just wanna make sure that if you have a tournament, and people wanna sit and watch the
People bring their own chairs.
amazing players from this group.
You've got, the nice thing about the pickleball courts where they're gonna be is you've got that walkway around. So there's gonna be people,
cool.
because there's gonna be people sitting in the grass area in the front, and there's gonna be people in the walkway around it. And, people typically bring their own chairs, their own stuff.
I just wanted to throw it out
Yep,
now, so
yep,
then come up with
Yep, yep.
That's good.
That's when you hold those, like international tournaments.
Oh, yeah,
And the
Carvana.
pros come in and they do.
PPA.
Yeah.
That's really nice.
I'm thrilled.
Yeah, I think this is awesome. I mean, Casey and John, both of you guys, the attention to detail, and I feel like, we've been talking a lot, asking a lot over the last couple of years, and it's very clear that you listened, which is much appreciated from my perspective. So thank you so much.
It's really nice.
Absolutely.
Well, I just want to say thank you for the pickleball group that stuck around.
Yeah.
With us.
I have one last comment though, that I just wanna make sure is clear for the architect and for Casey, is that these folks are very, very, dedicated to the pickleball program, and they're very, very, and they've expressed this at our board meetings, interested in that cover. So we really need to make sure that we're planning appropriately for whatever that cover is gonna look like, from sleeves to how do we get over to wherever we're gonna go, right now versus after the fact. I'm sure you've done that. I just wanna drill it down that they're gonna come back and talk to us about it one of these days. And we need to be ready to go when we have the money to go.
Right when they're done. So that by the time it's finished, you guys can play during that.
Yeah.
Hey,
Thoughts on
John,
that?
John, to that
Yeah.
point, how much would it cost just to get the plans done for that covered space? And that's a Casey, John, Clay conversation.
Yeah,
That's a whole.
I don't know that I'm prepared to answer that question. Honestly, it could be a free service if you went with a prefab, like a metal structure. A lot of it depends on the design of that structure. But the prefab manufacturers, a lot of times they will provide plans. They may not be bid-ready plans, but they could provide some generic plans and a very detailed cost estimate, probably for free. If you wanted something a little more architectural, a nice aesthetic wood structure, those sorts of things, that would cost, obviously, to have an architect draw that up. But I think there's other budget-friendly options out there.
Well, and wherever those footings are gonna go.
Yeah, so part of the reason why we shifted this slightly to the north, instead of lining it up, is to provide space all around the perimeter, for footings and utilities to come in and those sorts of things. So it's hard, it's hard to fully detail something out. I mean, we don't know where individual footings will be located until the building's designed, but we did specifically provide a buffer around this court for that reason.
Casey, is there a timeline for when the cover would go up? I mean, is there a yes or anything? I mean, what's the plan?
No, it's, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, at least 4 big projects going right now. And I don't see where we're gonna complete all of those until 27.
I was just wondering if there was some way to kind of make that a more rapid thing. If we got it, we could talk about it, some kind of a fundraising campaign to do it. And if we had
Grant
interest in
money
doing that, maybe we could accelerate the whole thing. But there's an idea.
Is this cover, I don't know if anyone can answer this, or if anyone's even really thought about it, is this gonna be okay by the city? Is
A cover?
a cover,
Come see what it-
okay. We just talked about it
As long
generically.
as it's engineered
Yeah,
and it goes and passes through the
Right,
building
right.
department,
Stuff,
yeah,
yeah.
it should be okay.
Okay, cool.
Now, Casey, have we notified, or are we at that point yet? Will we notify the neighbors?
Not yet,
Okay,
that's what we're
Soon.
waiting for.
once they approve it, the city, then they're gonna ask you to go out and notify. Yeah, so.
So I will say, it crossed my mind, we're working on another one for the city of Silverton, actually. And they were interested in a cover. They have 6 courts as well. So it's a pretty, apples to apples comparison. Just a ballpark range, if you were to go with a prefabricated building, it'd be around 400,000 for the full thing, construction and everything. Another option that we actually considered was a tensioned fabric structure. It's a less permanent structure, and a lot of times you actually want to pull the fabric in the winter. But that would be around 250,000 or something like that. So that hopefully gives you at least a ballpark
Thank you.
dollar number for what it would cost to put the cover on.
Lots
Yeah.
of cookies.
Yeah.
You were right in stating, there was one time where I think for the golf course, we had a company come out and give us a quote for free, and they designed it and everything for a pole barn to put out there. So companies, like you said, do that locally. You could always ask, hey, come out, and usually it's a metal roof type, barn type structure. That's an option you have. You
Yeah,
can do
they-
that.
Pulling the fabric in the winter kind of defeats
Yeah,
the purpose.
I don't think that would be.
That's when you need the cover.
When we need the cover, yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. It's just
it's a thought.
when we have events like storm things coming through in the winter, they can get damaged.
Yeah,
Well, I
So
think even George Fox has issues with their tennis center.
I've heard that, yeah.
That hasn't worked out really well.
John, do you have just because I personally have no idea, a timeline on a project like this? Once ground is broken, how long would something like this take to complete?
it's honestly a tough question, and trying to hit even a cost estimate for
Yeah.
contractors right now, it's like trying to throw darts. But if you got the right contractor and they were really you know, ready to roll, I think you could do this in 3 months. It's basically paving and fencing.
Yeah.
So, you know, probably the contractor who's gonna do this project would be an earthwork contractor. And then they'll sub in the asphalt paving, and they'll sub in the fencing. And they'll probably do all the, you know, stormwater and, you know, running the water line to the drinking fountain and those things themselves. You know, because it's basically just trenching and earthwork. So that would be, you know, I think best case scenario, somewhere in the 3-month range. But, you know, I wouldn't think it would go past 4 months. It really shouldn't.
Casey, when are we hoping to break ground on this? Do you think?
When it dries out, Jim.
He said later summer,
Yeah,
I'm assuming that would be
like July,
August 1.
I'd say July, yeah.
Because if it's 4 months and you start in August, that isn't enough.
Should be pretty, it should be.
Well, it'll be dry.
July.
It'll be dry, but that,
Yeah, I mean, it's rained all of June in this state before, so you never know, but
exactly.
I would say July, you're probably pretty safe.
I do
Yeah.
too.
And I appreciate
So too.
everyone's understanding of why we have to build to do it right. And then after that, you'll have a premier facility,
Yeah.
which is awesome.
Yeah.
Because even if it does rain, it hasn't been raining for months and months and months. That's what the
Exactly.
problem
Yeah.
is. If you
Exactly.
dig now, it's just,
Yeah, they'll have a shower come through, it dries up, and then.
right,
after-
exactly.
Well, who knows with the weather that we're seeing this year.
Well, that's a good point.
But the current courts would be available until you break the ground too, so. Yep.
Yes,
Yeah.
that would give us the
Yeah.
You just
spring
have
to
your
play.
3 to
Yeah.
4 months where you have
Yeah.
to go
Yeah.
fight
So
for
there's a
space
trade-off
in the
there.
gym.
And it's always super hot in August.
I was gonna say, a lot of times August is
Yeah.
pretty hot, and people travel.
Did I misunderstand though, that when we do this project, the whole thing's down?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody's got
Yeah.
that, I just wanna make sure everyone's clear.
Yeah.
We are, not
tennis-
everyone.
The tennis courts won't be open when you're doing the pickleball and vice.
Yeah.
it's just-
Yeah.
Right.
Don't come scream at the seat. Well, I guess I won't care at that point. I won't be on the board.
Oh, man.
Oh,
Don't go scream at the board.
It's good for us
You're on
to
the
know.
downward slide.
We have some camps out there in the summer, so we'll move those. And then I've also notified the softball and the baseball players, because sometimes they come over and they warm up on that side.
Yeah,
so
they do.
It'll make a difference for them too.
Yeah. And tennis.
Yeah.
Well, I guess tennis is now, so it's not that big a deal.
And yeah, in the May.
Yeah.
Does anyone have any other questions for John at this point?
I don't think so.
Thank you for all your
I
time.
really
Yeah.
And all your
appreciate
work.
it.
Amazing.
This is great.
Yeah, thank you. It's my pleasure. It's an honor to be a part of the project, honestly. I love these projects, so it's a lot of fun. So thank you.
Thanks, John.
Thanks,
Thank you.
John.
All right, take care.
You too.
Yep, you too.
Oh, hello, Clay.
He's supposed to be cooking dinner.
He's supposed to be cooking dinner.
Power's out at my house.
Yeah.
No,
Up and
Got a
down.
message from PGE.
no.
All right. Well, I think the other thing on the old business that we need to do tonight is appoint positions for this committee. Mainly a chairperson and a secretary are the two that we had previously, and I think it would be wise to have that once again.
Well, I personally think that you need to be the chairperson. You've done a great job filling in and doing that. And we might have another person on this committee. So could we hold off on the secretary till that other person is in?
So now I'm chairperson and
I
secretary.
nominate, I nominate Deputy
Yes.
One more month, Nick, one more month.
I have a lot of secret powers, but taking notes is not one of them.
Well, the beauty is that you have a recorded, Go back.
I don't care. It's the last thing I'll do. I'll resign before I do it.
You know, you get AI nowadays, and
Yeah.
it'll do it for you.
Nick is
But yes,
so
to simplify
concise.
things, I can,
Yeah, that's
I
good.
can do
You're
that.
so
Yeah.
concise.
Yes.
That's my problem. Is I
Okay, well, sweet. Looking ahead to new business. So one thing that we had discussed a little bit last time, so I guess maybe it should be an old business. See, I'm not a great secretary. Is discussing a sort of a listening session with the greater Newberg pickleball community about, other little details that maybe we aren't thinking of or weren't thought about by Casey and John, just to kind of see if there's anything we're missing. Personally, after seeing that, I have full confidence that at least from where they're at now, there's, I don't know, not much they didn't think about.
I agree.
I do think, though, we are a public entity, and we deal with a lot of different populations, and we need to also look at the accessibility and making sure that we include our community in this decision. It can't just be for pickleballers. It's got to be for Jakewood Park. And so for us to get out and do those types of sessions is good for everybody.
The more you get buy-in, I gotta tell you, the better off you are.
Yeah.
And the more people know, and if they have a chance to say something, it's a lengthier process, but it's a
Yeah.
better process in my
Totally.
opinion.
I totally agree. I think the only problem now is, a lot of the big details are getting looked over, that.
Well, you can say that, though.
yeah,
You can say, we've
yeah.
got most of it, we just wanna make sure we haven't
Yeah.
forgotten something in here that isn't also frivolous.
It's partly a
Sorry.
briefing too. It's just
Yeah.
to get the
It
information
is.
out
It
there
is.
so
A lot of
people know
people-
what's going on.
A lot of people have asked me, well, I heard, I thought we were getting a cover.
Yeah.
Read the paper. No, that's not happening right away.
Yeah. And that was something I was thinking about, Casey, too, is would it be possible to get a copy or even just a screenshot of that plan, just
So we
because
can
we
share
do
it.
get a lot of questions about it and a lot of rumors start, like Sheryl said, a lot of people, oh, I heard they're doing this, and I think that is just a great representation, just so that I could even have on my phone and be like, oh, this is actually what the plan is. Yeah.
That would
I think
be
it'd be really
great.
helpful.
Just
If
put
the committee
draft all
members
over
had
it.
that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it's publicly available because it's
It's
City Hall.
in the,
Yeah.
yeah,
It's
I
been
know.
yeah.
Okay.
submitted for permit.
Well,
Well,
then
they
you
could
had it
also
here, too.
watch
Yes,
this.
exactly, and you'll see
This.
it, yeah.
Yeah, but handing it to someone
Is different.
Yeah.
is a big difference.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can go online, do all that kind of stuff, but
Yeah.
just handing it, oh, this is what we're talking about, right there, right now.
So, staff, how do we go about doing these listening sessions? Do we send out, obviously, we have, how many members of our pickleball committee, but can we publicize it and then just hold it in one of the bigger conference rooms at the pool?
Well, everyone's gonna get a letter shortly. Everyone that lives around that area. I think there's 162 people that are gonna receive a letter,
Okay,
talking about this project.
500 feet? Is that 500 feet or 1,000?
500.
500.
Yeah.
Oh,
We can
I'm
also have a
surprised.
public meeting here
Yeah.
if you would like.
Yeah.
We did that for the Rennie project. And we just invite, the community to come and answer, they can ask questions, but we also kind of explain the project to them. We can definitely do that. We can use this, side of the, district, and then we can actually use the other side of the district as well, where they can kind of watch it on a big screen in case we have a lot of people. But we'd be more than willing to do that. We could get Kat involved with that, and she could send out information, through all of our social media outlets, and we'd be
Well,
happy
how
to do
many
that too.
people do you want?
Well, I think,
I'm more concerned about the people that live around the project
Yeah.
area, because those are gonna be your friends or your,
Or you're not.
frenemies.
or the people that are gonna look at it and question it.
but
I
I'm
can tell
also,
you that the church is, I've talked to the church about it, and they're fine.
yeah, I've had long conversations with the guys that are doing the Peace Garden, and I said, you guys do realize that pickleball's right there, And he says, well, it's all about community now, isn't it? So I was
They're
super
on
excited to hear
And
that from
and
him.
just the fact that you have all been using the facility for the past several years. And really, we don't get
I was
complaints
just gonna
on
say,
anything.
you guys are the only sport that we don't get complaints about. So good job. I've never gotten a call
Kudos to you.
ever, which is crazy because you hear that,
What's your
right?
number?
But you know what you could do is just post some stuff, like post the meeting for the general public, but put flyers or something around that part of the community so that particularly the people that are nearby know that this listening session or whatever is gonna be there where they can ask questions.
On something in the paper too.
When we do the aquatic center, you can probably, those folks are everywhere.
We went
You know,
out.
at every ball game, they were every first Friday. And that might be a thing you might wanna do this first Friday, set up a table. And then show, hey, this is going on, Park and Rec, I think that'd be great. And when the Wednesday market comes back in, that's another place to get it out there. But I know that when the aquatic center was going on, the committee, they just beat the bushes forever to get that thing, so people would know. And that's why there was such a positive, so the more people that know,
It's true.
I think hopefully, in the long run, hopefully, the better.
Speaking of the aquatic center, this is a side note, my daughter was here this weekend and she used the facility and she was absolutely blown away. And she went to lap swim during public swim and so she saw both and was just, she said, what a gem for this community. And I've received that feedback from other people, but
Well, the pickleball is the same way, I think. These are really nice courts.
Yeah.
I understand, and Matt Smith is watching this, and he sent me a text about the bathrooms and stuff, and I get that, the bathrooms are old, and I remember when they were built, but,
At least they flush, and there's water.
is there gonna be a facelift? Even
I think cosmetically, I think we
Cosmetic,
probably,
yeah.
we need, the staff could probably do some things, but to replace the building is a big, it's a.
to
It's
replace the
instead of,
building,
it's
it's not
instead of a
necessary.
roof.
Huh?
It's instead of a roof.
But it's
They're great.
it's functional, it's nice. And
It's
if you,
nice.
my frustrating thing for me is if you make it really beautiful, people like to tear it apart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the way it is right now, it's maybe not beautiful, but it's functional and it works, it meets our needs. And I've been to other facilities where things are nice and they get tore up. People tear stuff down, it's just like, why? And right now, the way it is, it's functional and it doesn't get tore up, it doesn't seem like. That's just my opinion.
So
I think
how,
cosmetically we can work on it though.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the bathrooms are great, but then I've been in, I use outhouses at the end of the run skiing, so,
I often go home.
Well, enough.
If you can. But I think back to your question about notifying people, I think the more you get out there, the better off you're gonna be. Cat is a big help if you wanted to set up stuff, but I think the committee is who should probably focus on trying to, what message do you wanna get out? Who do you wanna get it out to? And then you work with staff on how
Well,
to
I
get
think
that
first
done.
of all, we need to get it out to our the members of our club.
Probably wise.
That's a great place to start, and then, because there's so many people that want to play pickleball, or,
Yeah.
are interested in it. And the neighbors, and that's when we get to the community
Yeah.
piece.
And do we think it might be smart to hold off on this until it's gone through city approval, or do you think prior to city?
Yeah,
I
what if
think
they
we could
change it all?
get- I think we could get our pickleball club one done, one or
Yeah.
two,
Yeah.
done sooner rather than later, and then the whole larger community, and I like the idea of going to First Friday, although I'm not available First Friday, but,
oh, I am.
and the
Check
Wednesday
this line.
thing, the farmer's market. I
Yeah.
think those are great ideas. We can have flyers at CPRD.
I would try to make at least one session where you invite people in.
Absolutely,
And that's, I
absolutely.
don't think I'd do more than one. This is moving forward. When we did it for
Yeah.
the pool, I mean,
You
we
were
had to get a
raising
bond
funds.
pass.
Yeah.
So, I
Yeah.
mean, it was a little bit different,
Yeah.
but at the
Yeah.
same time, because, like Jim said, that we all went out into the community, it was because of that that it passed. It would not have passed otherwise, there's no way. But when you get the community involved and they get to ask about things, it just makes it so much easier.
Well, I can call Kat and ask her to help us with the, if this is okay, kind of the messaging, what the presentation, so we're very concise. We have a messaging kind of to get the ball rolling, so we know what we're doing, and then, you know, a 5-10 minute presentation is about all that we would need to do, I'm assuming.
You'll have a lot of questions that will take up more time. The actual presentation won't be very long.
Okay.
You're gonna need to be able to answer those questions, because it's been in the news a lot about the noise. And so how are you going to approach that? As a group, you need to plan to talk about
Yeah.
that, have a consensus of how you're gonna talk about that.
And you know, Kat's
Or
pretty,
any other problems that you may see.
Yeah.
Is there,
And the good parts
You've
that
already
it
been
brings.
doing it, and it hasn't caused you a
It hasn't
problem,
caused a
so,
problem.
and where they're putting the courts is further away from, except for a couple of the homes on College right there.
Right.
It's further away, so I think you should be okay.
And there's so much activity over there with the softball and baseball. And
Yeah.
there's people that
They're
live
used to
there,
it.
so they're used to it. And they understand.
it's not in the middle of
It's
a
good
quiet
sounds.
community. So one question I would have is, what hours of operation would this be? Right now, we have people that play there at 6 in the summer.
I know, I can't believe I've not got complaints about
There's there is a code.
Dusk, yeah, I know.
City
There-
bylaws from
Noise is
7
7.
until 10.
What, a noise,
There's a city noise ordinance or bylaw, 7 AM till 10 PM. And after that, in between
Okay.
10 PM and 7 AM,
Usually it's dawn
You
to
can't.
it's
dusk.
supposed to be noise.
Yeah.
You know, dawn to dusk is.
but if we have lit courts,
That will,
that's gonna,
They would still probably end at 10 o'clock.
oh, absolutely, yeah.
Yep.
That's my bet.
Well, I gotta tell you, like in Hawaii, I mean, if you go and you see tennis courts, they're there at midnight. They will, as long as there's a light on, they will be at those tennis courts, because those are the people that work odd hours, and that's when they're gonna go. So, I mean, I think it is good to establish some times
Okay.
that we should be, and it
Well, like-
should be with whatever the district is.
Like in Sherwood, the lights turn off at 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
They just, you can
I thought it
turn the
was
dog.
earlier than that.
Is it? It could be. I
thought
just
it
know
was
that at a
that.
certain time, they just won't come on. And that's just run, that's set up by the city. And you can go out, and turn the dial or whatever. I can't remember what it is, but you turn the lights on, and then at a certain point, they're just done.
Well, hopefully, if you're putting in anything like that for the lights, that there's some kind of system like that would be
Yeah,
really
that would
great,
be a good,
that you can control.
And your goal is to get everything put away before the lights turn off. Because if they turn off,
It's really
it's
dark,
really dark.
kinda like it was just a few minutes ago.
So do we want to, for our next meeting, prioritize planning, sort of a listening session and maybe a strategy moving forward from now till June, which would include, you know, Wednesday, tabling at the Wednesday market, include First Fridays, or do we see a need to rush that?
when do you think we're going to have final approval from the city?
Well, it's in review right now.
Okay,
So they have 15 days, I think it's 15 days to review it, and then public letters go out. And then there's a 30-day window.
so we're gonna have a yes or a no from the city before our next meeting, and then we have to go out.
Well, you could still work on things like that.
Yeah, okay.
I think we can get our pickleball club meeting done within the next month or two,
Okay.
in early April at the latest.
And
that's
then
kind of our,
that's when baseball season's starting, so we could, you know, do some flyers and stuff.
Yeah, I personally think shooting for early April is a good plan, but to use one of these meetings to plan it out. Because like Jim said, we're gonna get a lot of questions that we wouldn't expect maybe, and I think to sit down and brainstorm, make sure we're all on the same page, and what we're saying is true and correct from a board standpoint and policy standpoint. It would be worth making sure we're all on the same page.
That we get together
Yes,
and plan
exactly.
those meetings.
Yeah, yes.
Well, I will get with Kat in the next
Okay.
week or so.
Okay.
I'll set up a time for her. And we'll
Yeah.
start working on it.
Okay. And
Because-
shoot for we could shoot for a meeting or a listening session that I think would include the Newberg Pickleball Club. Like at least we would market it to them for early April. Does that sound good to everybody?
And then the larger community a little later.
Yeah.
And then our next meeting is the 31st, right? March 31st?
I don't think
Oh,
we
good. I think I'm back in
I don't
town.
know that we have anything.
I think it would be the 31st. Yeah.
Okay. Yep.
So maybe tentatively we could plan for a listening session the week of April 7th. And again, maybe Linda, this is just something you can run by Kat, but
Okay, so what are the dates? Listening session in April?
Sometime
yeah,
the week of April 7th.
or the 7th or the 14th, I would say.
Well, then if I were you, I'd have all of y'all come up with whatever questions you think
Yeah.
of between now and the 31st
Exactly.
and come with your questions or
Yes.
share them ahead of time.
Exactly.
Because
yeah.
then you can cull it down to whatever you think is
Yeah.
really helpful.
Trying to remember your name.
Brandon.
Brandon. sorry.
Brandon.
I was just checking my calendar.
So you're here.
Yeah,
You haven't been here before.
no.
What's the possibility, you heard a lot tonight, of shooting us a list of questions that you would probably have asked? You're just fresh eyes, and it would
Yeah.
be great for you to just shoot us like 10 or 15 questions that you might think somebody would ask
Okay.
from where you sit.
I can do that.
Cool,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Well, great. I'm glad we got that planned. So, last thing on the agenda is open comment period. Is there anything that anyone wants to add?
I have a general pickleball situation, fun and games. When I was in Sun River, they hosted, it was a round robin and it was a lot of fun. The pro put it on. It was held in the Shark. They have a huge room. We had 2 courts set up, and I didn't bring it, but we played with a squishy ball, and it cut down the noise, changed the game, and it was a ton of fun. And we would go back and forth. We had the indoor ball and the outdoor ball, but we all played it, and it reduced the noise in those small places. It also reduced, it just seemed to be like a safer way.
What is that? I don't.
It's, you know those little smushy balls, and I'll bring it.
So, I teach PE.
Yeah.
And there's a difference between Nerf tennis balls and Nerf pickleballs, and I can bring both.
So they have
Yeah.
Nerf pickleballs.
They have Nerf
Nerf,
pickleballs
okay,
and
so
they have
Nerf-
Nerf tennis balls.
okay.
The tennis ball's a little more dense and a little more bouncy, and the Nerf pickleball is a little less bouncy and it's a little softer, so it's a little slower. I can bring them both. Huh?
Is it heavier?
They're both about, I mean, weight-wise,
Yeah,
they're pretty light, but when you squish the tennis ball one, it's just denser. Squish the pickleball one, it's a little softer.
Yeah, it is.
But I can
soft.
bring them to look at them, and I would even donate a couple if people wanted to use them at the indoor just to try them out.
But I think it's a fun thing for us to kind of look at, especially for indoor use. I don't play indoors because I can't stand the sound of it in the gym, but it was a lot of fun. I mean, it's not a 3-5 and up above probably wouldn't do it, but for just having fun with pickleball in a confined place, it was really fun. It was a cool experience.
I use them just because they're easy and slow for students to play with.
One thing I wanted to follow up on, Julie, you mentioned that we had an application for another member, Lori Rauch. Is that going to be in the
Thursday's
on the
packet.
agenda? Perfect.
Yep.
Okay, sounds good.
So we'll know.
Yep.
Yep.
Sweet. And then the last thing I attached, sort of in the packet, I guess, was this list of basically roles of committees within the district that Julie put together for us a couple years ago. And I don't think we need to go through it in detail. I'll have Kat post it, but like Bob, I don't know if you saw this, but I just think it's a really good resource to, you know, when we kind of are thinking about what we're doing and how we want to spend our time looking back at this as kind of a guideline. We talked about it at the last meeting, so I just thought I'd throw it in. So, yeah. Anything else? Sweet. Yes, very, very good meeting. Thank you again, Casey.
I think that's the best one yet.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, yeah.
Exciting.
Yeah.
It's happening.
Yeah, well, with that, motion to adjourn the meeting.
Hey, and your goal is to get our new superintendent out there in the morning?
You want to play pickleball sometime?
5:30.
All right, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
And now a quick off the record happy birthday for Cheryl.
Oh.